If you're a Neil Gaiman fan, there's no way you don't know about the mythological tapestry that is the Sandman. Across its volumes, this story blends ancient folklore, biblical parables, and mythic archetypes with modern storytelling, giving us something that, once you start reading, you can't put down. The Sandman has everything from ancient gods and demons to places that are sentient. The way this story reimagines mythic creatures can be best described as striking and unexpected. That is why, in today's video, we'll be exploring the most iconic mythical creatures that appeared in the Sandman series, which have left a lasting mark on us. Before we get into our explanation though, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Shall we interview them one at a time, or?
Demons of Hell. Hell in the Sandman universe is a bit different from how you usually visualize a place when you hear the word hell. It's not just a place of torment, it's actually this surreal and politically complex realm that's filled to the brim with metaphysical horror. Lucifer Morningstar is the ruler of Hell, where several grotesque demons live, and these demons are there to enhance the ambiance as well as play a crucial role in Dream's story. Gaiman created this realm not just as a place where people get punished for their sins, but also for philosophical reflection on autonomy, power, and suffering. One of the most iconic inhabitants of Hell has to be Choronzon. He's a demon who challenged Morpheus to a battle of wits and transformation in the early arc, Preludes and Nocturnes. This character is inspired by occult traditions, particularly Aleister Crowley's writing and Enochian traditions. In this series, we see Choronzon transform into powerful entities like direwolves and universal entropy as a part of the battle. Eventually, he's defeated by Morpheus when the latter transforms into hope. This loss is one of the more memorable moments from both the comics and the show because it shows how nihilism will never triumph over dreams. Other than him, another iconic character has to be Azazel. He's yet another demon in the realm of Hell. He lacks a corporeal form and is usually seen as this floating rift with multiple pairs of eyes and sharp teeth. He quite literally hovers in a private dimension within himself. In the comics, he showed up in the Season of Mists arc where various cosmic powers petition Dream for dominion over Hell after Lucifer abandons his post. Azazel is straight out of a Giger-esque body horror when you look at his form, and this kind of form wasn't a coincidence. The deeper truth of the Sandman is that physical appearance often mirrors the metaphysical identity, and Azazel is living proof of that. There are other demonic entities present in Hell too, like Merkin and Agante. They come in bizarre shapes and personalities, each reflecting obscure theological references or ones that Gaiman created himself. These creatures all represent Gaiman's darkly humorous take on damnation. Sometimes they're tragic characters, but most of the time they're grotesque and symbolic of some deeper metaphysical condition that we need to examine more closely to fully understand. And Hell is a part of the cosmic ecosystem, something entirely necessary for the dreaming's balance. In the Sandman, Hell is a reflection of human fear and guilt, while dreaming is that of creativity and hope. So, the demons of Hell serve as philosophical torments that enrich the universe created by Gaiman.
And bring Morpheus to his knees.
Lucifer Morningstar, the fallen angel of pride and power. Lucifer is one of very few figures in the Sandman who's always looming over the story. He's, as many of you have guessed, derived from Christian theology and heavily inspired by Milton's Paradise Lost. However, there's something about this version of Lucifer that you'll not find in the show or any other version of Lucifer. Gaiman painted Lucifer as this philosophical and melancholic figure, full of pride, beauty, and weariness. This depiction of Lucifer is vastly different from the typical snarling devil of pulp fiction or the morally gray and seductive version we know him as. In Season of Mists, Lucifer abdicated his throne and handed the key of Hell to Morpheus. This is a pivotal moment in the story, one that's a genuine expression of existential fatigue. After ruling over Hell for eons, Lucifer chose freedom over power, a sentiment that was felt by everyone in the Sandman universe. This inadvertently set off a political chain reaction among gods, angels, and demons. Gaiman's portrayal of Lucifer is very similar to the romantic tradition of seeing Lucifer as a tragic anti-hero. He's someone who refused to serve in heaven not out of malice, but because he had an unwavering sense of self. This interpretation is enriched by Lucifer's calm demeanor and his refusal to be bound by cosmic destiny. In the Netflix adaptation, Lucifer is played by Gwendoline Christie, which builds upon this layered identity. Christie's portrayal puts Lucifer's androgyny, power, and emotional complexity at the front and center, and unlike the Fox series' Lucifer, this Lucifer is elegant, subtle, and very powerful. Lucifer eventually ended up becoming the star of his own comic series, Lucifer, where the foundation laid by Gaiman was expanded upon and the theological freedom of creation was explored thoroughly. While Lucifer isn't really a creature in any sense of the word, he earned a spot on our list simply because he's undeniably mythic. He exists across literature, myth, and folklore. He has a pull to him, and that's why he's one of the most iconic entities in this universe. So, in a way, you could say that in the Sandman, Lucifer is a cosmic philosopher who questions authority, fate, and even his role. His story challenged the audience to consider the age-old question, is freedom worth more than glory? Which I think resonates with everyone.
If you think I am going back to the dreaming with you,
You're not going back.
The Corinthian, nightmare turned flesh. If we were to name the scariest creature in all of the Sandman, we would undoubtedly say the Corinthian. The Corinthian is a nightmare created by Dream himself. He was originally supposed to be the black mirror to humanity, but then he managed to escape and became a serial killer in the waking world. The most memorable aspect of the Corinthian is that he has mouths in place of his eyes. The moment he takes off his glasses, your gaze will be met with two smiling mouths instead of his gaze, invoking this deep sense of horror. And in a way, this character design already tells you everything you need to know about this creature. He's someone who consumes everything he sees. You guys are probably wondering where Gaiman pulled the Corinthian from. Well, let me tell you, he didn't draw him from any myth. Instead, he invented the Corinthian as a modern urban legend. He described the Corinthian as the boogeyman of the American psyche. He's what happens when fear gains autonomy. He first appeared in The Doll's House, where he was literally at a serial killer convention. Here, by using this, Gaiman satirized true crime culture while also introducing us to a creature that speaks of our darkest instincts and celebrates them. The Corinthian doesn't just kill, you see. He philosophizes and even offers macabre reflections on what it means to feel. Now, keep in mind that all of this happened while Dream was in prison, so after he got out, he went after the Corinthian. The Corinthian challenged Dream, and in retaliation, Dream unmade him simply because the Corinthian breached the boundary between the sleep and the waking world. Several years later, Dream made a new Corinthian. This Corinthian was a completely different entity, but still had some memories of the first, and took on the name of the first Corinthian. This version was more loyal, more refined, but still had that disturbing charisma. The Corinthian's existence is a constant reminder of Dream's fallibility and just how powerful nightmares can be. In the Netflix adaptation, the Corinthian is portrayed by Boyd Holbrook, whose southern charm lures you in, and by the time you see the deep sociopathy beneath it, you're already too late. The show expanded on his roles a bit, giving him more to do, which we love. Gargoyle creatures. Goldie and Gregory. When you think of the word gargoyle, you probably think of stone statues, and trust us, we don't blame you at all. But in the dreaming, gargoyles aren't stone statues at all. They're sentient, magical beings who have personalities and emotional resonance. Out of the many gargoyles that are in the Sandman universe, two stand out, Gregory and Goldie. They may look monstrous, but they embody the themes of innocence, the cost of sacrifice, and loyalty. Let's start off with Gregory first. Gregory is a dragon-like gargoyle who lives in the House of Mystery. He lives there with Cain and Abel, and technically he's Abel's pet. Just like medieval European gargoyle iconography, Gregory was originally a protector. He used to ward off evil and bad luck, just like the stone gargoyles we see perched on Gothic cathedrals. Gaiman made Gregory an extremely lovable and obedient pet, exuding so much warmth that you'd probably want him as your pet. And then you've got Goldie, a cute golden gargoyle. But here's the thing. When Goldie first hatched, Abel wanted to name it Irving, but Cain insisted that the name must begin with G. This led to a squabble which resulted in Cain murdering Abel over it. Eventually, when Abel was revived, he decided to name his gargoyle Goldie, even though deep down, Goldie would always be Irving in his heart. Fun fact about Goldie is that initially, in the original Sandman comics, Goldie was a male, but in the 1995 spin-off series called The Dreaming, Goldie was a female. Both Gregory and Goldie appear in the Netflix adaptation. After Dream managed to get out of his imprisonment, he went back to the dreaming, where he learned that in order to gain his power back, he would have to unmake Gregory. Gregory's death is a visual metaphor for the stakes of Dream's restoration, and it hits home for everyone. And how could they not? Gregory is such a cutie. We love that Gaiman softened their traditionally fearsome image and gave us something so admirable. They are the creations of the dreaming, and they remind us that even nightmares have a heart.
Caution, Princess Barbara. I scent strangeness in the air.
What manner?
The Dreaming Dog, Martin Tenbones. Martin Tenbones is a massive dream hound who guards Princess Barbara in the land. He's a cross between a dragon and a mastiff, so in more ways than one, Martin is a fantastical beast. He's the living embodiment of fading childhood innocence and loyalty. For those who don't know, Martin is from Barbie's dream world. This dream world, called the Land, is a fantasy realm filled with talking animals and fairy tale shenanigans. He is her protector, companion, and knight. He's completely devoted to her, and when Barbie stops dreaming and returns to the land, Martin goes a long way to find her again. His journey in the waking world is tragic and surreal. He disguises himself in a trench coat to search for Barbie, but his otherworldly appearance frightens bystanders. Right before he meets Barbie to give her the porpentine and warn her of the imminent danger of the cuckoo on the land, the police open fire on him. Martin dies in Barbie's arms, finishing his mission. This death is sudden and brutal. The readers are literally taken out of this fairy tale land in an instant with the harshness of real-world violence, but it makes sense. Fantasy is fragile, and innocence is always under threat by the mundane cruelty of reality. This character is clearly inspired by guardian beasts of myth like Cerberus from Greek myth or Fenrir from Norse myth, but Gaiman gave it a little twist. Martin isn't ominous or fearsome. He's earnest and pure-hearted. You can see from his design that he aligns more with children's fables than epic myths, and this is done intentionally, because with Martin gone, Barbie's last shred of dream world innocence disappears. Martin is also the symbol of belief. He exists because Barbie believed in him, she once dreamed him up, and his devotion shows how the simplest or the silliest of dreams can shape and define our sense of self. So, Martin's appearance may be brief, but his impact resonates long after he's gone. Fiddlers Green, the sentient place. As strange as it may sound, in the Sandman, even places can dream. Yes, we're talking about Fiddlers Green, a sentient location in the dreaming that can take the form of a man known as Gilbert. Fiddlers Green is a peaceful landscape that can be best described as a sailor's afterlife. Let us explain. Fiddlers Green is the mythological resting place for sailors. This is a paradise with perpetual music, drink, and companionship for people who died at sea. This is the dream that sailors dream of finding. Gaiman took that idea and personified that dream as this bearded and bookish English gentleman designed after G.K. Chesterton named Gilbert. Gilbert walks in the waking world simply out of curiosity. He just wants to experience life. He first appeared in the Doll's House storyline as a protector of Rose Walker. He's a kind man who loves literature, and that's what sets him apart from other dream creatures. When Dream comes to reclaim him, Gilbert willingly gives up his human form and returns to his true state, an endless green glade in the dreaming. Fiddlers Green as a character is not just significant for how original he is, he's also significant for what he represents. He's a rare example of the monster archetype being reversed. Unlike other shapeshifters who want to cause mayhem or seek freedom, Gilbert shapeshifts simply because he wants connection and service. His return to the dreaming is not an act of defeat, it's an act of loyalty and love. Unlike others, Fiddlers Green is a stable presence, symbolic of peace and internal sanctuary. He's the embodiment of the softer sides of folklore that give us rest rather than fear. Gaiman reminds us through Fiddlers Green that the afterlife can be shaped by curiosity, kindness, and belief, just like other dreams can. The Kindly Ones, the Furies. The Erinyes, or the Furies, are some of the most mythologically grounded beings in the Sandman universe. Directly pulled from Greek mythology, these three goddesses are there for vengeance, especially crimes of familial murder, betrayal, and broken oaths. In mythology, Erinyes were terrifying deities who followed oath breakers and punished moral violations, especially if it was within families. Gaiman brought this concept to life in his narrative, and they become the central antagonists in the Kindly Ones arc. Although, to be fair, calling them villains would be an oversimplification. After all, they are the moral police of this universe. There's a point in the story where Dream's son, Orpheus, requests that his father kill him. Dream obliges this request, and this invokes the Furies, who have to respond. Their response is not a matter of personal vendetta, they are cosmically obliged to do so. In their eyes, Dream has broken a sacred rule, and hence, their wrath was completely justified by the metaphysical laws of the universe. They always appear as terrifying women cloaked in shadows and flames, even though their visual changes. With that, Gaiman makes one thing very clear: these creatures are not bound by mortal time and physical boundaries. Their powers are existential, and that's why when they start moving against Dream, they undo his world just by principle. Now, another thing about the Furies we're sure you guys have noticed is that they have a clear connection with the triple goddess archetype. They showcase different phases of womanhood and power, but also how fate is tied to one's choices and how every action has a consequence. The kindly ones decide that they would cause Dream's inevitable downfall. Not a death of the body, but one of the soul. Morpheus understands what's happening. He's not beyond the rules that are greater than him, so he submits to them. This act echoes the Greek dramas where gods and mortals fall to fate. There's no way to deny that the kindly ones are the only constant in the ever-changing world of the Sandman. Whether a new god rises to power or an old one dies, the kindly ones remain the same. They exist simply to uphold a terrifying kind of justice, and there's no way around them. Aazils, demonic cohorts, and other underworld entities. Azazel and Choronzon aren't the only demons that live in hell. In the Season of Mists, we're introduced to several demonic lords and entities who come out of the woodwork once they hear that Lucifer has abdicated his throne. Some of these demons were followers of Azazel, while others were independent terrors. The designs of these creatures heavily borrow from medieval Christian demonology, so multiple eyes, horns, appendages, and mouths in unexpected places were nothing new. The visual elements of these demons implied heavily that they were more than evil. They were completely unknowable. Some of these background demons have some dreamlike body horror going on, which is an artistic style that goes very well with the comic themes. Gaiman himself acknowledged influences like Francis Bacon and Hieronymus Bosch when he envisioned his hell, as these are painters who are the very best of the best at depicting grotesque surrealism. Some of these creatures we see have names, but many do not. However, their anonymity does not lessen their impact on the story. In fact, in our eyes, it's because they're so ambiguous in form and role that they are as scary as they are. They're not demons that people can draw a pentagram and call upon. These are dreams of torments and guilt come to life. These demons show that hell isn't just a place for punishment, it's also a reflection of human loathing, regret, and fear. And understandably, these demons are drawn to exaggerate those aspects. Some mock the living through and through, some cry in frustration at all times. All of them exist in a realm where suffering is the essence of the place. The best part about Gaiman's hell is that demonic beings can be more than simply evil. They can be tragic, comical, or even bureaucratic. These layered views add more complexity to the simple monster roles. Now, these demons don't have entire arcs dedicated to them, but their presence is essential for the atmosphere, and they are the proof of how much effort Gaiman put into creating a world where nightmares never sleep.
We are the guardians of the palace, and we shall fulfill.
Mythical creatures from dreams and realms. The entire premise of the Sandman stands on one foundational truth: dreams have no limit. So, in a truly limitless fashion, Neil Gaiman filled the entire dreaming with a wide array of mythical and surreal creatures. Now, many of them show up fleetingly in the comics, but despite those blink-and-you'll-miss-it cameos, they play a huge role in the overall story. Each of them reflects archetypes drawn from folklore, the human unconscious, and ancient myth. Some of the most visually memorable creatures we meet in Dream's realm have to be dragons, unicorns, chimeras, and other griffin-like beasts. But they're not there just to look pretty. Each of them functions as an emotional representation as well. For example, a unicorn passing through a scene has a symbolic meaning of purity and longing. The subtle symbolism comes from centuries of myths, like dragons acting as symbols of wisdom, danger, or chaos. Griffins, who traditionally guard treasures, might now guard symbolic gates in the dreaming. Even creatures like sea serpents and manticores are recontextualized in The Sandman. Throughout the series, you don't always get the names of the creatures or their origin stories, but that's part of the point. They are the raw material of this realm. They are literally thought into existence by years and years of myth-making instinct. The various artists who worked with Gaiman on the Sandman also brought these characters to life with breathtaking creativity. Each panel is full of bright colors, unnatural glows, and anatomy. Their drawing also cements the idea that the dreaming is a realm beyond our comprehension. This is where creatures grow following thoughts and not the rule of nature. These creatures do not share the same time on screen as the Corinthian or Gregory, but they still serve a vital purpose. They root the dreaming in timelessness, which is what makes it so much more mythic than others.
I told you we're late.
We are right on time.
Nuala and Cluracan, the fairy siblings. Nuala and Cluracan, the fairy siblings we're introduced to in the Sandman, are derived from Celtic mythology. They hail from Faerie, the ancient realm that predates the waking world and works under a whole new set of rules, values, and politics. The fairies in the Sandman are not whimsical forest creatures or anything like the fairy kingdoms modern fantasy writers have introduced us to. They are very much like the fairies we meet in Irish folklore, beautiful, cruel, and dangerous. Cluracan is a courtier in the court of the Queen of Faerie, introduced in the 5th chapter of Season of Mists. Cluracan is a trickster who loves drinking, mischief, and rebellion. His character is inspired by the Cluracan, a type of mischievous Irish fairy well known for guarding wine cellars and causing minor chaos. Cluracan is quick-witted and often ends up involved in courtly politics, especially when visiting realms like Hell or the Dreaming on behalf of his queen, Queen Titania. Dream described Cluracan as an amusing rogue after their adventures together in The Kindly Ones Part 2. After the events of The Kindly Ones, he somehow managed to offend his queen so badly that she sent him to the court of Eleanor. Nuala, on the other hand, was his sister. Her personality was completely the opposite of Cluracan's. She was quiet and self-sacrificing. She was given as a political gift to Dream by the Queen of the Faerie, and she ends up becoming one of his most loyal subjects. She took on the housekeeping duties of the Dreaming, and she was torn between remaining true to herself and serving Dream. Her soft-spoken demeanor often hid her deep emotional conflicts, and her character arc overall explored the themes of autonomy, unspoken love, and servitude. Nuala's story takes a rather poignant turn in later volumes, especially The Wake, where she makes a choice and returns to Faerie. She rejected Dream's unintentional emotional manipulation and asserted her independence. This particular choice transformed her from a passive observer to an agent of her own fate. These two siblings offer a rare window into Gaiman's vision of the Fae as these ancient amoral beings. They are also humanized, making the fairy realm also relatable. You can see repression and revelry, humor and tragedy in those realms.
I'm your worst nightmare. I'm a pumpkin with a gun.
The Pumpkin-Headed Janitor, Mvin Pumpkinhead. Next on the list, we have one of the most beloved characters from the Sandman, Mvin Pumpkinhead. He's not directly rooted in traditional mythology, but with his jack-o'-lantern head, sarcastic wit, and blue-collar attitude, Mvin manages to bridge the gap between mythic imagery and modern sensibility. Although he does appear to be a Halloween decoration come to life, his role is a lot more nuanced than that. Mvin is the maintenance man and janitor of the Dreaming. He cracks jokes, smokes cigars, and complains about being overworked, but under that gruff exterior, he's a complex character representing the working class of the dream world. He's a construct of myth grounded in reality. His pumpkin-head design is reminiscent of ancient traditions. The jack-o'-lantern originates in Irish folklore with the tale of Stingy Jack, who walked the world with a carved turnip to light his way. In America, this folklore evolved into the Halloween symbol we know today. So, Gaiman taps into that imagery and suggests that even seasonal myths and folklores like that can find a space and new life in the Dreaming. What makes Mvin so unique has to be his self-awareness. Unlike others, he knows he's a part of the infrastructure. He's the voice of practicality in a world where dreams come to life. He's still loyal to his dream and plays his part whenever things are in danger. In the Netflix adaptation, Mvin is voiced by none other than Mark Hamill himself. He adds layers of gruffness, melancholy, and charm to the character, which, in our opinion, elevates him to a whole new level. Mv's presence proves that sometimes myths aren't about gods and demons. Sometimes it's about the ones who endure, because that's what Mvin is all about, endurance. Cain and Abel, biblical myths in the flesh. Anyone who even knows a little bit about the Bible has probably heard of Cain and Abel. With their inclusion in the Sandman, Gaiman managed to give this world a new mythological depth. In the Dreaming, Cain and Abel live eternally, residing in the House of Mystery and the House of Secrets respectively, and they have only one role: to act out the first murder in human history over and over again without end. Cain, the murderer, is clever, quick-tempered, and sarcastic. Abel, the victim, is stuttering, meek, and endlessly forgiving. Their dynamic is comedic and tragic. Cain kills Abel over and over again, only for Abel to return unharmed. Gaiman uses this eternal recurrence to explore the mythical nature of storytelling. Their cycle reflects the core of what makes myths timeless: repetition. Like the phases of the moon, Cain and Abel reenact their tragedy over and over, and that's because this is the very structure of the myth. By placing them in the dreaming, Gaiman manages to elevate the story into a symbol of eternal storytelling, trauma, and forgiveness. Abel also becomes the caretaker of Goldie the gargoyle, and even though Cain is violent, he has a protective streak to him. Their relationship is complex and also about dependence, identity, and legacy. Cain is drawn with sharp features, a sinister grin, and with a weapon in his hand, while Abel is drawn as pudgy and nervous at all times. These exaggerations help showcase their mythic archetypes. Now, ultimately, their story embodies the themes that Gaiman returns to over and over again: rebirth, death, and the stories we tell to survive. After all, they are the breathing embodiment of religious myth. The Dream Vortex. Unity Kincaid and Rose Walker. The Dream Vortex might be the most metaphysically terrifying and mythically rich element of the Sandman universe. We're introduced to the idea via Unity Kincaid and her granddaughter Rose Walker. Now, they may look like humans, but in reality, they're vessels for a force capable of unraveling the dreaming entirely. The Dream Vortex is not a creature, really, but it's more like a mythic force in a body. Simply put, a dream vortex is an anomaly. When a human has a strong enough dream essence, they start to collapse the boundaries between all the dreamers around them. They don't mean to destroy it though, they simply do it unknowingly. Their entire presence threatens the structure of dreaming and thus the minds of everyone who dreams. Unity Kincaid was supposed to be the original Dream Vortex. However, with Morpheus being imprisoned for decades, her fate was deferred, and Rose, her granddaughter, ends up inheriting the role. So, while Rose searched for her brother Jed, she ended up influencing the dreams of people around her, slowly merging them together and drawing them all into her using a gravitational pull-like force. The Dream Vortex isn't malicious at all, but they are, in general, dangerous. Dream, bound by the rules of the cosmos, is required to destroy the Dream Vortex if it threatens reality, and that's where the tragedy lies. Rose isn't a bad person, she's innocent. Her power comes from inheritance, something that was beyond her control, but she has to be the one to pay for that. In mythological terms, we feel that the Dream Vortex actually resembles destructive avatars in various cultures, beings whose existence brings about change, rebirth, or chaos. Rose's story also feels like a Greek tragedy because her personal fate collided with cosmic laws. Gaiman explored identity, power, and the cost of destiny with the Dream Vortex. Rose's arc isn't just about surviving, she also has to understand who she is and what she actually represents. When her story ends with her survival, it marks the most humanizing turn of the series as a whole. Ultimately, the Dream Vortex is here to make us understand that within the realm of dreams, where thoughts are the most powerful, there are things that are beyond everyone's control. Gods and God-adjacent beings. So far on our list, we've mentioned demons and demon-adjacent characters and people from the dreaming, but that doesn't mean that the Sandman doesn't have deities and God-adjacent characters. Here's the thing though, they're sprinkled around the narrative, but they don't dominate the story. That said, their presence does underscore one of the central ideas of the series: belief creates reality. From Odin and Loki from Norse mythology to Anubis, Bast, and Thoth of Egyptian lore, or even minor figures from African, Japanese, and Hindu traditions, the pantheons are treated as a part of the metaphysical framework of the Sandman universe. Their power is real, but they are dependent on belief. Some are manipulative tricksters like Loki, others are keepers of spiritual transition like Anubis and Bast. Gaiman reframes them and places them in scenarios that will question their purpose, identity, and relevance in the modern universe of dreams and ideas. Now, these beings are bound to the endless in their proximity. They're not more powerful than Morpheus, but they operate in a similar abstract dimension. They're not mortal, but they are shaped by mortal thoughts. They're both old and constantly evolving alongside humanity in much the same way that dreams do. A marvelous verdict! In short, the Sandman is a cathedral of myths that's stitched together with imagination and reverence. Demons, furies, gods, and dream-born beasts, Every creature in Gaiman's universe has a purpose beyond plot. By blending all of these legends with original invention and adding a layer of humanity's emotional state on top of it, Gaiman's world becomes timeless and intimate. In this world, myth isn't a relic, it's alive and evolving. And with that idea, we've come to the end of our video. Let us know if you want us to cover any of these creatures in more depth, or if there's any other creatures from the Sandman universe you want us to cover. We're always looking for ideas for new videos. And as always, if you like this one, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.